This story is called The Golden Glow. Once upon a time, long after the past, and just before the future, there lived a little girl named Tasha. She was just about your age, but a little bit smaller. Now, one day, just before supper time, as the air was quieting down, preparing for nighttime, Tasha was swinging on her favorite swing, which hung from a large oak tree. It was autumn, her favorite time of the year, when the trees showed off their beautiful colors before losing their leaves. As she was swinging, Tasha became aware of a tiny musical sound coming from the underbrush near the oak tree. She looked and finally saw a tiny person, no bigger than her finger, playing a teeny fiddle on top of a mushroom. Well, Tasha was so surprised that she gasped. And the sound startled the little musician, and he quickly zipped off the mushroom and hid behind the stem. Well, feeling bad that she had frightened him, Tasha beamed a gentle, friendly smile toward him, and finally he came out a little bit from behind the stem. "Hello," whispered the little girl. "I didn't mean to frighten you. My name is Tasha, and I really liked your music." Well, the little guy's face lit up, so she knew that he understood. "I'm called Dugan by my family blood." And Tasha asked if he would please play some more, as the music of his tiny fiddle made her feel especially good. And at her request, Dugan climbed back up on the mushroom and played a tune. Tasha couldn't help dancing to the music, for it was the happiest music she had ever heard. And when it stopped, she sat down in the tall grass to rest. The little girl noticed how comfortable she felt with Dugan, even though he was so different from her. "Where do you come from?" she asked. "Would you like me to show you?" he replied. "Could you come to my tree hut and meet my family?" Well, Tasha didn't know what a tree hut was, but she was delighted at the invitation. "I'll ask my mother if I can go," she said, running toward the back door of her house. Now, as Dugan lay in the grass waiting, a big leaf came floating down from the oak tree and landed on top of him. Just then Tasha came running back with her mother. "Dugan! Dugan!" she called, because she couldn't see him. Dugan remained under the leaf to fool her. "Well, who is Dugan?" asked her mother. "Well, he's a little friend who was just here a minute ago, playing his fiddle on top of that mushroom. Can I go to his house and meet his family?" "Oh, you can do whatever you want with your little friend, as long as you stay in the yard. And I'll call you when supper's ready." Tasha's mother chuckled as she went back to the house. Well, the little girl was downhearted, thinking her new friend had left her. "Peekaboo!" exclaimed Dugan as he rolled out from under the leaf. "Oh, there you are. My mother said I couldn't leave the yard, so I guess I can't go with you." "Who said anything about leaving the yard?" Dugan replied as he walked toward the oak tree. "Look, down here." And as she looked closely, Tasha was amazed to see a very small door at the bottom of the tree. "Come on," said Dugan as he opened the door. And suddenly she became very sad. See, Tasha realized that she was too big to fit through the tiny door. Right away, Dugan knew what was wrong, and he whispered, "Don't worry, dear friend, I know just the thing." And he played his fiddle. This was not ordinary music. As she listened, Tasha felt a way she seldom felt, like when it's about to rain and the air is very still, or when she used to cuddle up with Rusty, her puppy. It gave her a warm feeling inside, and she closed her eyes and listened. When the music stopped, Tasha opened her eyes, and to her surprise, everything around her had become very, very big. And she realized that listening to the music of Dugan's fiddle had made her very small, just like him. Now, Dugan led the way through the small door, and as soon as they stepped in, Tasha saw the most beautiful light she had ever seen. It was all around, shimmering gold. She had felt a bit afraid stepping into this strange place, but the golden light made her fear go away. It made her feel, well, the same gentle warmth inside that she had experienced when she listened to the music. Now, inside the tree was a long stairway, down, 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 and Dugan went first, slowly, for he knew this was unfamiliar to his friend. And finally they got to the last step, and out before them stretched a great pond of water. And the water was a delicate blue color, unlike any water Tasha had ever seen before, and it was so beautiful. And tied to a little tree was a boat shaped like a walnut shell, because it was a walnut shell with a little sail and a paddle inside. Well, with Dugan's help, Tasha climbed inside and held on tight to the rim of the boat. She had learned to swim that summer, but she was still a bit uneasy in the little wobbly boat. There was no wind to blow against the sail, so Dugan paddled the boat. And as she became more at ease, Tasha put her hand into the water. And just as the color of the water was strange to her, so was the way it felt. You see, it wasn't exactly wet. It felt sweet. If you can imagine something feeling sweet. It felt the way the golden light looked and how Dugan's music sounded. The water on her fingertips created a tingly sort of feeling, a calm excitement that she could feel all over. It was such a wonderful sensation that Tasha didn't want to take her hand out of the water. After a while, they reached the other side of the pond. Tasha wasn't sure how long they had been traveling, because ever since they'd gone through the door in the oak tree, she had been unaware of time passing. Well, they stepped onto a warm, sandy beach. The sand was very fine and soft, and it shimmered in the golden light. After tying the boat to another small tree, Dugan led the way into some woods along a small path. At last he stopped in front of a small cottage with a grassy roof, and Tasha knew that this must be the tree hut. When they went inside, she was surprised at how many folks were in the little hut. 2 of them were old, Dugan's mother and father, and there were 6 or 7 others, all ages, and they were sitting around a circular table, just finishing their supper. "Dugan, love," said his mother as she came to greet him, and she gave him a long hug, and then she smiled warmly at Tasha. "This is Tasha, my friend from the outside world. Well, I wondered what kept you so long. Welcome, Tasha. Both of you must be hungry. I fixed your favorite dish, loomy stew, with curly crunchers sprinkled on top." They both sat at the table, and after closing his eyes for a moment, Dugan took a long, deep breath and quietly ate his supper. Tasha was very hungry by this time, so she dug right in and started gulping down the stew. But something in the taste made her slow down and chew each bite very well. And at last she understood why her grandma had always said, "Chew, chew, chew, It tastes better when you do." She could tell Dugan's mother was very loving, for she even cooked love into the food. Now, after a delicious dessert of berries, Dugan's dad jumped up from the table and said, "Let's celebrate with a dance." And everyone was delighted at the suggestion, and they pushed the table aside, and Dugan got out his fiddle and juggled up a dance tune, and they all took hands in a circle, well, except a baby brother who sat in the middle. And they danced and danced. Oh, Tasha danced like she had never danced before. And at last, when the music stopped, everyone plopped down on the floor. And feeling more at ease, Tasha said, "You know, ever since I first heard Dugan's music, I have felt this feeling inside. I could feel it in the golden glowing light as I was coming in here, and the beautiful blue water as we sailed across the pond, and I could taste it in the supper. Tell me, what makes me feel that way? How can I feel it all the time?" "You call this a feeling," replied Dugan's father. "But actually it is more than that. It is really your true nature. It's what you were made of. Long, long ago, this was the only feeling people knew. The golden glowing light was everywhere, and people were good to one another, and everyone was happy. And then something happened. We're not sure. Some say it was a cold wind that swept over the land, spreading greed and unhappiness. But word got to one man, Dugan's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, that something bad was coming. So he dug under the ground and made a home for his family. And when the cold wind came, this family stayed underground, and they did not lose the pure, happy feeling. And when they came up again above ground, they discovered that people had forgotten the warm glow. They no longer knew how to be nice to each other. Dugan's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers decided to stay with his family in this underground home. And through these many generations, a beautiful world developed around them. And as you can see, we've become very small people, and there are few of us left. However, a legend tells us that one day, once again, everyone will know that feeling, and they'll be kind to each other, and the golden glow will be everywhere. Tasha felt all tingly inside, warm and cold and calm and excited. And by this time, some of the younger children had fallen asleep, and Tasha realized that her mother would probably be quite worried. And Dugan knew what she was thinking and offered to walk her home. Tasha was sorry to leave, and she hugged each and every one goodbye. "Remember," whispered Dugan's dad, "that gentle love is always in your heart. Just listen for the music of his fiddle, and it will awaken that happiness within you. And the real secret," he said, leaning closer, "is that when you feel that love and joy, give it to someone else. This is the only way to keep it alive. Good night, Tasha." "Good night, dear friends, and thank you." And she waved goodbye as she stepped out of the little tree hut and took off through the woods with Dugan. By this time, Tasha felt she had known the little fiddler a long time, and she wasn't looking forward to saying goodbye. because she didn't know if she would ever see him again. At last they came to the little walnut sailboat and climbed inside. And as they crossed the pond, Tasha kept her fingers in the water, wanting so much to hold on to the wonderful feeling it gave her. When they reached the shore, Dugan tied the boat up once again to the little tree, and he took Tasha's hand as they slowly climbed the long stairway, and the golden light shone gently and lit their way to the top. When they came through the door, Tasha was surprised to see that it was still light outside. She saw the swing that she had left behind, and seeing how big it was, she realized that she was still little, and she began to worry about what her mother would think. Dugan knew exactly what to do. He took out his fiddle, and he played a gentle tune that started small and got bigger as it went along, kind of like how a growing sunflower would sound if it was music. The softness of the music made Tasha close her eyes, and when it was over, she opened them again, and sure enough, she was back to her normal size. Looking down, she saw little tiny Dugan putting away his fiddle. She bent down and took his little hand, and a tear came down her cheek and splashed on his head, and he laughed. She said goodbye as best she could and begged him to come back again someday. "Never forget," he said in his tiny voice, "my music is always with you. Just listen quietly, and you will hear it." And with that, he popped back through the door. Tasha sat down on her swing, feeling quite content. The colors of the leaves looked extra bright, and the air smelled clean and sweet. Suddenly she remembered that she was probably late for supper. She was surprised when she went into the house to see that her mother was just setting the table. "Hello, sweetheart, I was about to call you for supper." Tasha gave her mother a big hug. She couldn't wait to tell her about the adventure she had had with Dugan. "We're having your favorite soup tonight." "What's that?" "Mushroom." Tasha felt a twinkle inside, and she smiled.